And I think I sent you an email, right, saying I'm going camping for a day, but if you need me edits, I should be back at a computer tomorrow. And we just went for a hike, behind a tourist site. There's tons of tourist information about the area. Even on Iranian TV, they say how it's popular and burgeoning tourist interesting. So we just got really unlucky. And I'm sure everyone knows our story, right? Everyone knows. You all know her more than you know me, but I was just teaching in Damascus and living with my fiancé for more than a year. He's an international journalist, and we're both activists. I've been doing feminist activism for a long time, as well as anti-war activism and indigenous rights, and in southern Mexico. So I've done a little bit of journalism. That's more just like a side project for me. I've been a teacher for 6 years, and here I am.
The women of Syria use modern technology to resist the imposition of strict Sharia. And I thought that was exactly the kind of story that Women's eNews wants to produce, right? First of all, that women is resisting, because all you hear is the Sharia and the victim and blah, 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 and now the awareness of this, the real life, right, that other people do stuff. You don't have control of everything.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little how you decided to do that story? And
in Syria, they actually have a separation. They have different courts for different religions. So a lot of the family law, it's kind of a blanket term in the Middle East for any laws that apply to like child custody or divorce or marriage, or a lot of them have to do with women's rights, right? Because it has to do with the family and the home. And in Syria, for a long time, they've had separate courts for Muslim women, Christian women, or Druze, or any other religions. But this law that was proposed was going to make a blanket law based on the strictest interpretation of the Quran for all religions. So, of course, Christian women were really angry, non-denominational women were angry, and Muslim women were angry because a lot of Muslim women didn't even agree with the interpretation of the law. And a lot of people in Syria that I spoke to about this law were just amazed at the resistance, how widespread it was, and a lot of it was online. And there's a lot of censorship in Syria, like online censorship. So it's an important thing that people are still claiming this tool, as a empowering thing in the women's movement. And as far as I know, the law did not pass, right?
it did not pass.
Okay, that's good.
No, because it took us so long to publish it, we had to go back and make sure, but it did not pass. It did not pass. Good news, yeah.
So it's really nice to be invited to something, intimate and friendly like this. We've just been media mavens, and diplomats, and just nonstop for the last 2 weeks. So I know we'll be there.
There's a lot of burden on you now because of the relationship with Iran and the two men who are still in prison. And I assume that when you're doing all the media, that's why you are doing the media, is that you believe that the publicity is so hard, right? Which way do you play the publicity, right? And so can you just talk a little bit about your thought process in deciding that I have to go full tilt, and even though you've been in prison for 14 months, you can't really pay attention to your own needs because of this burden.
No, it can't. Nora and I haven't really had the experience that we've been waiting for all this time yet. But this is the learning experience. It's incredible to be doing this work together. And to be able for me to have some agency and some power in the world and be able to make these choices. And hopefully help free my fiancé and my friend. I'm sure a lot of the women that were in prison, right near me, are phenomenal women. And one of the hardest things was not being able to talk to them, being isolated from other Iranian women. I've done a lot of advocating myself for women's rights, especially in the U.S.-Mexico border. there's been a long-standing horrible episode of femicide on the U.S.-Mexico border of immigrant women working in factories. And that's what I did for a long time. And when I found myself in prison, I was like, whoa, I'm really on the other side, I mean, it's always been like I was doing it because I think women all over the world have something in common as far as what we're up against and, the oppression that we've experienced. But I also consider myself to have a great deal of privilege being born in the United States and having this amazing feminist mother and, but I really found myself on the other side, and it was amazing to know that people out there were advocating for me, and that, when you meet it, people are out there.
Did you know it? Did you know it? How did you know it that we were out there?
Well, it took a long time to get to me. It trickled in pretty slow, but through letters, I was only able to receive letters from my mother, and probably a very small fraction of what she sent actually got through all the different, links in the chain of censorship before they got to me. But she told me everything. It was really in the last 3 or 4 months, I think, that my mom was really asking the global feminist community to step in and advocate on my behalf. And she told me through letters what was going on. She told me that my article was published with you guys. And I think when we saw each other in Tehran, I asked her, was that article ever published? And that's how she found out about it.
Yeah.
So, we got.
Now that you've actually experienced the prison, where do you see your activism going? Do you want to know?
No, I do have, I have I want to go back to grad school and I want to study conflict resolution.
Oh, yes.
And everyone, gets a good laugh out of that. But I have a kind of dream of starting a nonprofit organization that does kind of conflict between groups on the left, whether it's, women's groups or any anti-oppression groups. And I would also like to work in Palestine and occupied Palestine. It's an issue very close to my heart. And I know that, my roots in feminism has always informed everything that I do. So I know that there will be feminism in, very as a central part of what I do with conflict resolution. But of course, there's so many possibilities, but I don't know what exactly direction it will take. But I hope to work with women's groups or women in Palestine, Israel, a lot of different ideas. I am playing a really delicate line right now because I just want to make both sides happy. I don't want to alienate either side. I want to encourage them to continue cooperating. There's been some positive steps on Iran's side, and we're kind of waiting for the U.S. to actually come through with their promises to engage with Iran, and we're hoping that will be the thing that does it, finish this nightmare for all of us. So there's no way to really know, but there's some good signs, and we're tireless. We're redoubling our efforts, and I really truly believe that based on what my mother has told me and her efforts to include the global feminist movement, women's eNews efforts, and lots of other safe work for women helped procure my freedom.